Well, I'm so glad to be here. And November seems, although I loved it, it feels like the longest month in history, right? I'm like, are we still in November? Like, what is going on? So we are still in November. It's November 30th, and it's our last Sunday of the month. And it's been an incredible, incredible journey we've been on this month. Our theme has been the art of plenty. The art of plenty, really looking at, feeling, and sensing into the natural state of abundance that exists everywhere within us, even around us when we look at nature. And so we've been exploring the art of plenty. How do we practice? How do we practice or embody the practices of abundance, of prosperity, of circulation, connection? And so that's been our journey. And so what I used this month was the story, and typically in our teaching, in Science of Mind, we don't typically refer to the Bible, but I did. And I used the story this month as a metaphor, the story of Jesus and the 5,000 as our metaphor for the month, because it's such an exquisite story of supply, of plenitude, right? Abundance, of the month before we talked about the art of manifestation, which really means to reveal. It's not magic, it's just revealing, right? And Jesus and the feeding of the 5,000 is all about manifestation, all about revealing abundance. And so we've walked through this whole story this month. And, one of the things I wanted to point out is at the very end of the story, there are 12 baskets of food left over, right? There's more. There was more than enough to feed the 5,000. And this is what I love. And it says 5,000 men and women and children. So there were more than 5,000, right? Only the men were counted. So there was more than enough from those loaves and fishes to feed thousands and thousands and thousands of individuals. And at the end, there was more left over. There was more left over. And so everyone was satiated, everyone was satisfied, and yet there was even more. And at that point, Jesus says, he asks the disciples to gather up the baskets, right? Gather up the fragments, right? Gather up all that's left over. And what I think is key in that statement is what he's pointing to is stewardship. Right? It's stewardship. It wasn't just left on the ground, right? It wasn't just left strewn about wherever they were gathered, right? These things weren't just left there. They were gathered back together. They were brought back together, right? This idea of stewardship, of yes, we want abundance. Yes, we want prosperity. Yes, we want overflow. We want to live in the overflow, and we have to be good stewards of the overflow, right? We have to be good stewards of the overflow. And so one of the things I want to talk about as we move into the talk today, which is about sustainable abundance. Sustainable abundance, right? Sustainable means to be capable of being maintained at a certain level, right? Sustainable means being able to last over time without depletion, that you're able to maintain something, right? Maintain that overflow. And I want to talk about how overflow even happened in the first place. Because what's interesting is so many times we go through life and there is a need that we have, and we're looking at that need and we're like, okay, I just need, I'm just going to make this up. So I just need, $3,000 to do da-da-da-da, right? I just need this, da-da-da. I just need this amount, right? So what we're doing is we're shrinking our consciousness, we're shrinking our awareness to the level of the need. And what Jesus did is he didn't look at the need. What he did is he had the loaves and fishes in his hand. He looked up, which is a metaphor for looking to source, looking away from effect, looking away from the need, and looking to source, looking to God, looking to the Creator, looking to abundance. So he looked up, he gave thanks, right? He thanked because it already was done, and his consciousness is already done. And you always say thank you after something is done. And then he started passing the loaves and fishes, and as it circulated, it multiplied, right? We talked about that last week, right? So as things began to circulate, it multiplied. It didn't multiply in his hands. It multiplied as it circulated, because the law of circulation absolutely yields increase. And then there's all this bounty left over. And it's because of the consciousness that Jesus had, Jesus the Christ, in Christ consciousness, not in human consciousness, but in Christ consciousness. He saw the supply, he saw the abundance, he saw source that is infinite, that is overflowing, that is forever and ever and ever. He tapped into that. And so his consciousness was not bound by what he could see. His consciousness was not limited to what was in his hands or what was in front of him. His consciousness was not lowered to the problem. He raised the problem to the level of his consciousness. Right? He raised the problem to the level of source, which takes care of all things, which supplies all things. And when that shift happens where we stop looking at the world, we stop looking at the problem, we stop looking for just the 3,000, and we move to, oh, God is all there is. God is all there will ever be. We move to that knowing place and space. When we move there, then abundance shows up in ways we cannot imagine. Then we have overflow. Right? Are y'all following what I'm saying? Right? So it's moving away from this linear, finite thing and into God is all there is. Right? I am aligned with the divine. I know the presence of God is my very life. I know my divine birthright is abundance, is overflow. Right? And then you have an overflow effect, an overflow demonstration. Some folks will call it a miracle. In Science of Mind, we call it a demonstration. Yes. And so that is the overflow is a result of consciousness. And so then the question becomes, okay, so now I have this overflow. How do I sustain it? How do I maintain it? So let me just ask a question. Are there any of you out there who have had an experience where you've had this incredible abundance happen in one way or the other? Maybe it's money, maybe it's opportunities, maybe it's friendship or love, but you've had an abundance, you've had an overflow happen. And then a year later, a few months later, some point later, you're back in, things are tight, one way or the other. Has anybody had that experience? Okay, yes. So we've had that experience, right, where it goes up and down. And particularly for those of you who are entrepreneurs, right? So I'm an entrepreneur before I was here and still am. And, there's just part of that journey, part of that spiritual walk of being an entrepreneur, whether you're a musician or you have a business or whatever it is that things go up and down, right? We have a lot of coaches and creatives in this community who know exactly what I'm talking about, right? Things go up and down. Your cash flow is up, then your cash flow is down, your cash flow is up. And so it feels like these peaks and valleys. And so the question becomes, how do I experience sustainable abundance where it is sustained, maintained? There aren't the peaks and valleys, or it's smoothed out some. How do I get to that place? How do I shift my consciousness so completely to the divine that my outward experience begins to be more sustainable? So let's talk about that. So the coach in me always has some practices for you, so here we go. So one of the things that is necessary and that we see in the story is preparing the space before supply arrives, right? So think about this. When you are expecting a child, or you're bringing home a puppy, or anything is happening like that, where you're bringing something new into your life and your experience, you prepare for that. Right? Very few people just sort of wing it at that point, right? You prepare for that. You create a space for that new arrival. You make sure everything is set up properly for the new arrival. You prepare your space, your mind, everything gets prepared for that arrival, yes? And so that's the same thing with supply, getting prepared before it arrives, and we don't think about it in that way. We don't think about, how do I need to prepare myself for this? One of the things I work with my clients on is I give them what I call a vision brief. And no matter if my clients want to be promoted to a new level or they're looking for a job, whatever's going on, they want more money in their business, I always have them paint a picture, a very detailed picture of what it is they desire, down to what is your new salary or revenue level, and then what is your budget at that new level. And then what is your take home, and then what do you do with it, right? So really, we get really granular about the actual money part of it. There's other pieces too, but we get very granular about about the money part, because there's something that happens when for them, when they sit down and go, oh, in this new role, or the role I'm calling in, or the revenue I'm calling in, I'm going to make X amount of dollars. And so here's how much I would pay in taxes. Here's how much I would put into savings. Here's how much I'm putting into investments. I have them plan that before they actually have the experience. And the process of doing this vision brief and writing this down helps them begin to plan for increase, right? Plan for their new role, plan for their new revenue level, whatever it is, right? So they begin to actually plan before we get there so that once the money arrives, they're prepared for that. They've already thought this through. And so I invite you to be thinking right now about your life. Here's your move. Think about your life. And think about something that you want to call into your experience, or something that right now might feel like a little bit of a challenge and you need some sustainable abundance or desire sustainable abundance. Can everybody think of one thing? Yes? Everybody got one thing? Okay. So I want you now to be thinking about, what can I do to prepare a place for this in my life? As though I were welcoming in a baby or a puppy. And I use those because, typically we plan a lot for those things. For other things for ourselves, we can tend to wing it, but we tend to really plan for those kinds of things. So think for yourself, if you're calling in this magnificent relationship that is loving and supportive, where you feel respected and cherished, and whatever it is that you're calling in, then begin to prepare for that. So how do you prepare for that? Maybe it's getting rid of some old toxic beliefs that don't serve you any longer, getting rid of stories that don't work any longer, getting rid of people that are in your ear that are speaking only about the problem and not about the solution, right? Getting the old baggage out. I've shared with you all before that one of the things I do, and now it works all the time because I have neural pathways developed for it. I have the consciousness for it. But one of the things I do when I have a cash flow issue in my business is I clean out a closet, right? I go clean out a closet. And every single time I clean out a closet, money shows up, right? And so now it's happened so much, it's my story, and so it just keeps happening, right? But part of what's happening is getting rid of old stuff. I'm creating space. Nature abhors a vacuum. Right? So by getting rid of stuff I no longer need, getting rid of stuff that doesn't spark joy, right? Getting rid of stuff that is not really necessary, it's just taking up space, it's dead weight. Some things actually belong to someone else. I'm withholding good from someone else by holding on to stuff that I don't need, but someone else could use, right? They've served their purpose in my life. So by holding on to that stuff, I'm blocking flow, I'm blocking overflow. Right? Because now I actually have things in my possession that belong to someone else. Right? And I'm holding on to them. So I'm blocked, they're blocked, nothing's moving. Yes? Are y'all with me on this? Yeah? And so finding things to get rid of. So I have a confession. So I have a confession to make. So one of the things I did over Thanksgiving, so today's Sunday, so Thursday, Friday, Saturday, I had in my guest room closet, which is now my mom's room, a 36-inch wide lateral file, like a 2-drawer file cabinet. And it was so heavy that I had to hire someone to come and empty it and then move it out of that closet. And I donated the file cabinet. But I had like bags and bags and bags of files. So here's a little thing that was a key for me, like it was a clue that I didn't need that stuff. I had not opened that file cabinet in 3 years, okay? It's been in a closet, locked. And so I started going through all of those files on Thanksgiving, actually, Thanksgiving morning. And I started going through files and shredding and shredding and shredding. And there are about 14 bags of shredded paper in my living room and dining room right now. So well, thank you. But the reason I'm laughing is my mom was like walking through the living room earlier and was just like, what is going on? Like, what has happened here, right? So I have to find some place to take all that stuff. But the point I'm making is this. What it pointed out to me was how on earth was I holding on to that much stuff that I literally did not need, I had not looked at it in years. And so I invite you into your own life, and maybe it's not files, maybe there's something else. I'm the kid of a lawyer, so I used to save a lot of paper. Now I don't. But I ask you to look for yourself, what is no longer needed in your world? What can you dump and let go of? Because that's part of preparing the space for what you desire. The other thing is to look at what you have left, right? So the second move you make is then look at what you have left. What is remaining in your world? What is remaining in your world? And then to really value it, to use it, to put it to use. This is, again, the law of circulation. How are you using this item? How is it moving through your life? How is it part of your daily routine? And if it's not, that's another level for you, another level in this game for you to know, let it go. You're not valuing it, you're not using it, then let it go. And if you're going to keep it in your space, value it, use it, love it, bless it, even if it's not exactly what you want, right? It may not be exactly the furniture you want. It may not be exactly, your relationship may not be perfect, but you want to keep that relationship, right? Your finances may not be where you want them to be. Your health may not be where you want it to be, but value and love and affirm and thank and bless your body for being able to get you up and get you here this morning, even if your health is not where you want it to be, right? You're using it, you're valuing it. And so that's the second step to sustainable abundance. And then the third shift is to just simply recognize that nothing is wasted. Nothing is wasted. When you go through life and you live a certain number of years, there can be a time or times where you look back and go, why did I do this instead of doing that? Why did I turn left instead of turning right? Oh, if I just hadn't taken that detour for 5 years. Oh, if I just hadn't done this thing or that thing. Anybody ever get that voice? Oh, okay. There's some strong response to that. Okay. Yeah. So that voice kicks in that goes, if I just hadn't done this, then things would be different now. If I just had done this thing, things would be different now. And here's the thing that is so beautiful to really get about how God works and how this universe works is that nothing is wasted. Not one experience you've had, not one so-called misstep or mishap, not one tragedy, not one joy, not one so-called mistake. Like everything is useful. Because when you look at it, you begin to realize that the things that seem like a misstep are actually things that grew incredible skills, awarenesses, muscles, right? Grew incredible structure for you. And so the more we begin to value all of our life and not think that as we look back in the past and think, well, I wasted time doing this, I wasted time doing that. I was coaching a client who was very, very, who has a great job now, is looking to move up to the sea level in the next couple of years. And this person was very, very concerned about a previous role they had taken that felt to them like they had made a misstep. They had sort of gotten off the trajectory of their journey. And what we had to first really work on and get into alignment with was that the move that individual made in their career actually prepared them. It may have seemed like it was way over here, but it actually prepared them for the journey they're now on towards the C-suite. Right? It actually gave them some skills and some tools, some people leadership skills, right? Some empathy skills. Broke up a little bit of the hubris that can happen in sometimes. Right? It broke up a little bit of that so that they had more humility. And so now they are ready to lead at a larger level, to lead groups of people, to lead larger teams. But without this misstep, so-called misstep, they would not be ready with the emotional intelligence and all the skills and tools they're going to need to actually lead at a much greater level, right? And so for yourself, I invite you again to look at in your life the areas that feel like, why did I do that? And instead go, why did I do that? Oh my goodness. Look at what happened. Look at what I gained from that. Look at what I learned from that. You know, one of my favorite books is 15 Commitments of Conscious Leadership, and it says in the book, one of the commitments says to look at challenges in your life as allies for your growth, right? As allies for your growth. And so if you look at those areas that you tend to go, oh, why did I do that? And go, why did I do that? Look at how this has been an ally for my growth. Look at what it's grown in me, right? When you begin to do those things, then you are now preparing the space and you are ready for sustainable abundance. You know, I always say something about the collective, and I want to just say that, as always, the more we practice this stuff in our lives, in our individual lives, the more we experience sustainable abundance in our own lives by doing our work, by getting rid of the junk, right? By really, really stop looking at the problem and looking to source. The more we do that, the more we become places and spaces of transformation. And this world is not going to change if we stay the same and point at people out there and go, well, if they just did that or they didn't do that. No, that's not how it changes. What we're seeing in the world, whether we love it or don't love it, is a reflection of our collective consciousness. We all have a part in it. And so by transforming our individual consciousness, by transforming and moving into sustainable abundance, then we become players and partners and midwives to birthing a new world. That is how it works. That is how it works. And so that is what we are doing here at Silicon Valley Center for Spiritual Living. That's why I started this beloved community less than a year ago, because I wanted to be traveling on this journey called life with other transformers, right? Folks who want to transform their lives, to practice these principles, to be a part of the collective shift that is happening on the planet, because it starts with each of us. It will not happen from someone out there, right? All right, so can we do this, y'all? Yes. Are we ready? Yes. Are we ready to transform this planet? Yes. Are we ready to transform ourselves? Yes. Yes. Beautiful. Let's turn within.